All right, good evening, folks. This is our second take on recording our Discord Hangout. You can see it's just John and I this evening. um, my connectivity really did not do us any favors the other night, so we're going to go ahead and record this so that everybody can see it, not just those of us that were able to hang out the other night. We hope to make this something that we keep doing. John and I were just talking a minute ago, and our next one is going to be on tactics. We're going to put behind the Brightsword character creation for just a little bit till we can show you how to do it in World Anvil. And we're going to talk tactics on the next one, and you guys are going to see a poll on that tomorrow. So thank you guys for watching this, and we hope you enjoy it. We hope you enjoy this whole series. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So, John, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take our different talking points away.
Okay, as greetings, Freebladers. John and Matt show, Matt and John show. We are, as Matt said, we're redoing this. So the subjects that we're going to talk about tonight are the ones that you guys asked for, that we talked about in the original Discord session. So those of you that were part of that should be all the same material. You know, maybe we thought of something new in between that we didn't catch at the time. And I'm gonna talk through the answers to the questions that get asked, and then Matt is gonna ask the questions that you guys asked us, and I'm gonna answer those as we go to keep it kind of the same sort of interactive style, and then we'll post a recording so that everybody can experience what we originally did. That's the idea behind this. And so before I get started, these are background questions about Faelon. They have to set ranges across all the current and planned game systems we have. And we have a philosophy that you're going to get the gist of as we go along in some of these answers, because we're not going to answer all the questions probably as thoroughly and as completely as you want us to, because either that is a place we haven't filled in yet, and I'll explain that in a second, or it's something that's coming and we don't want to reveal it yet. So we're going to answer as much as we can answer, and then I'm going to tell you here in a second why it is we don't answer some of those things directly up front. And that is because, and I did think, Matt, after we did the session tonight, of a good analogy about how it is we do this. And I've taken this from, because I'm a Star Trek fan, I just am. Sorry, all you Boba Fett folks. So the production crew, the production crew for Star Trek: The Next Generation had a philosophy of not. This isn't the only show to ever do this. The only fiction enterprise to ever do this. They just did this very strongly. So it's certainly not invented by them, but not telling a story or filling in the holes of a story until it was necessary to do so. So when they set, for example, the initial show, the pilot and the first episode of the first season showed the crew in command of the Enterprise D. It did not tell the story of what the Enterprise B and C were until further along. In fact, when the show launched, that hadn't been fully decided. They had some ideas about what that would be. They just knew it was so many years later, so it probably wouldn't be the exact same one. They wanted to show you a new ship. Same thing here. We know where we're going in a lot of cases. Some things are settled because they need to be for some design issues, and some things we kind of know exactly what that's going to be at some point, and we don't. And we want to fill that in as we go, because we might have not thought of the best idea yet. You know, we might have one that's close, and then we modify it. What we end up with is better than the one we came up originally, which is something that crew talks about all the time. And it's having impacted them when they bring more people into the conversation. The writers of the various episodes, those folks had ideas that the original crew, didn't have, that turned out to be great, and they wanted to incorporate them. And if they had painted themselves into a corner, they couldn't have done it. And that's where you come in as we progress with what we're doing, and we add the patron level subscription level to World Anvil. Those folks are going to be able to influence these spaces inside Faelon that aren't completely filled in yet. And so there's a playground there. There's a box to play in, to color in, that we want people to join us. We don't want to just do it by ourselves. We don't have all the best ideas. A collaborative group of super creative people who all love this world. The bigger it is, the better it's going to be. The more chances somebody's going to come up with something. Hey, that's brilliant. Let's incorporate that, because we all want to play with that model, or we want to face that boss, or we want to explore that, eventual location that we, wouldn't have come up with necessarily just, with 3 or 4 people. So it's all part of being in the community. That's why in some cases you'll ask us a question, in some cases we actually do know, and it's none of your damn business yet. That's also true. So the first question was the other night, what is the present state of relations of the different factions in Faelon? And in order to say present, we have to talk about what the present is. So we have a timeline. As we really get rolling with telling this story, the year is going to kind of kick off where the story is really being told, and we're really advancing the timeline down the road, sort of being in the same space, is 1008. And that's 1,008 years after the first Falcaran king is crowned. So it's a Falcaran calendar. You had to pick one. Actually, there's a reason why it is, Falcar. We can talk about that later. That'll be fun. But it's at that point, we chose that because in that spring, 2 major historical events, 2 huge conflicts erupt across the northern continent of Faelon. And they're related to each other, but they're not the same thing. They take place in 2 different major parts of the continent. And they're happening for similar but not exactly the same reasons. The Bright Sword War in the northern half of the continent, and the Jaguar Crusade in the southern half of the continent. And those are 2 stories we very, very much want to tell. There's a lot going on. So we're in the big pause, the big breath you take before you dive in, right before those 2 conflicts start. We've teased some of that with our Holoresh and Gavahal celebrations. We've teased a couple chapters of both of those stories. And as World Anvil progresses, we're going to be, releasing more and more of that and telling that tale. So at the moment that those 2 conflicts are about to begin, Faelon is generally speaking pretty much at peace. Everybody's kind of settled down, and it's been that way for a while. There's a kind of balance of power everybody's settled into. There are alliances that are stronger, and there are enmities that are stronger. The Trazerites always want to own everything in the southern continent and then get all their land back in the northern continent. They've got this thing stuck in their heart down there called Mershale that they don't control. They're not fans of that, but there really isn't anything they can do about it right now. Every time they try, the Mershalans kick them out. So that's a thing that's a constant tension. And one of the reasons why that's hard isn't just because the Mershalans are so crafty, which they are, but also because the Trazerites are an empire full of kingdoms on a continent that stretches way down below the present map that are often in rebellion and often helped by the Eclipse Sisterhood, who's always causing trouble. So a lot of resources have to go into those counterinsurgency operations that they could expend on an invasion of Mershale or whatever. The second thing is to take back the lands that belong to them on the southern border of the northern continent, stretching from western Falcar all the way to Kandor City, pretty much. And they always want to start with Corona, because Corona just pisses them off, right? So Corona was the province that wasn't captured by somebody else. They were Trazerites that just rebelled and became their own independent nation. And that just can't be allowed to go on, because other people start getting ideas and thinking, and then it's bad. So there's a tension between, obviously the Trazerites want to take Corona back, and that is what the story of the Jaguar Crusade is. They're going to try again. And it's called the Jaguar Crusade because the lead legion into the breach is the Jaguar Legion. And the commander of the Jaguar Legion is the assault commander for that operation. So there's tension there. There's tension, of course, between the Eclipse and the Trazerite Empire. I think everybody pretty much has a handle on that. Strong alliances exist between the 3 Faelor nations, the 3 civilized Faelor nations, Falcar, Haradel, and Thormanol, pretty much solid. Falcar and Haradel and Corona, all 3 of them and Corona are solid, because when the Trazerites try, it's in the best interest of the Faelon nations to help the Cronins kick them back out, because nobody wants no Trazrite Empire in this northern continent. Trust me, except Trazrites. So those alliances are strong between those three countries and between those three countries and Corona. There's also a very strong alliance between the Free City of Khazarl and the Varkralan Confederacy. And Varkral is not something we've explored yet with a lot of models. There are a couple Varkralans in the Free Blades game right now. The True Seeker is a native Varkralan, and the Bounty Hunter for the Bandits is a native Varkralan. And they have a very strong relationship with the Khazar. One of the strongest alliances in the world at the moment. The rest of the Simkur nations, Kandor, Grular, and Semidia, not really allied to anybody except the Grular, have always had a strange relationship with creatures from another place, demons from Carolon, and that is going to be a major part of the Brightsword War. That relationship is going to get even stronger, and they're going to make a deal to do some conquests and split half the world in between them. So Kandoran's very isolationist. Trillian's pretty isolationist. They've fought a couple of nasty wars with the Herodellans. That's pretty far in the past. There are border skirmishes between them and the Varkralans all the time. That's why Blade Riders fight the way they do. That's why they're equipped with a longbow, because they have to pierce this awful Varkralan cataphract armor. Model we very much want to do at some point. We tell that story a little bit. That a story about that will appear on World Anvil when it goes live. We've done that one. Let me think about other nations we haven't talked about. There, Erdogar would ally with people. Sometimes they have relationships with the civilized nations around them, but they're just too busy constantly fighting amongst themselves to really get their act together. If someone could just unite the tribes, that would be something. So maybe that possibly something like that might be in our future.
Maybe.
So, and they have different relationships with the people around them, depending on which tribe we're talking about and which nation we're talking about. The Owl tribe and the Falcarans have a long historical track record. The Owls are the first tribe you run into if you go out of the mountains north of Falcar into Erdogar lands, and so they've long had a trading partnership and a relationship. So I think that covers most everybody. Matt, can we think of anybody we haven't talked about?
Not really. You did mention the Chakram, I think. They're pretty isolationist as well.
No, I didn't. No, that's a good one. Right. So also isolationists. They don't like anybody coming to the islands uninvited. They're also have a tendency towards sea raiding, also known as piracy. So that tends to throw a wet blanket on alliance possibilities. And also the other factions, the bandits, right? The Black Rose is beginning to expand her influences. She split her bandit group into two pieces. The Rose and the Thorn left the Thorn under the command of Akavan the Duelist, who becomes the Blackthorn, and that is going to happen again. It's going to be another branch of her dark syndicate. But she is an extra national organization. She's not a country. She's a criminal, crime lord, basically. And we'll tell more and more of her story. She will gain some power. She will become the equivalent of a free captain at some point during the course of our history. And so you'll hear more about her. But that, like the Eclipse, that's an extra national organization, isn't a country with a capital and whatever else. Okay, questions that we had related to that?
Yeah, so one of the questions that was asked was, since we're seeing alliances pop up in 1008, are we also going to see more figures allied with different factions within the game?
Oh, yeah. So, yes, I remember that. So, first of all, that already does guide us towards what alliances we do show, what models can be allied with what factions, is influenced by that, or what their nations are doing. So that's already true. The more individual allies and the more of those models that can ally with anybody, the harder the game it is to balance. And so that's not just going to be this uncapped thing where anybody with a natural alliance with somebody can automatically be part of someone else's free band in the Free Blades game. Now, that's different when it comes to a free band in a Brightsword adventure. I mean, there's some serious Rainbow Coalition stuff going on there. So, you could be anybody. You could all be Chakram Pirates. That'd be fun. We've done that before. You could be, it's your own story. It's the party's own story to tell, and inside the GM's campaign, what the deal is with that free band. So, but in the game, and allies have also grown in Free Blades sort of in a little bit of an ad hoc nature. When we felt like we wanted to do one, we'd add one. When somebody sponsored a model and they wanted to be an ally to certain people, we were open-minded about that. When we do free captains, we will probably do something that is similar to, and I can't promise this because we're still messing with it, but we won't be completely restrictive in terms of who can take what. So there'll be some options there. And natural alliances, depending on what time period you're playing in, will be a thing. And one of the great ways I've seen that done, and we'll probably use this for inspiration, is in the Middle-earth strategy battle game, where natural alliances, you get to keep your, the equivalent of a faction theme rule, and your commander can command the other person's troops. Then sort of alliances of convenience, you can be thrown together, but you lose all that. So if you really want to have those two forces operating together, you have to give up some things. And then there's just some never going to happen, like Trazerites and Eclipse being allied, never going to happen. So we will probably have something similar, but once again, unlike the role-playing game, balance will be a consideration. So it can't be completely unconstrained, even if the background says during this time period A and B kind of got along. Some attention has to be paid to balance mechanics and list construction. Other questions, Matt, on that one?
No, there were no questions more on that one, sir.
Okay. Subject number 2 was about magic. The questions were, how was it first harnessed? We're going to tell that story later, so we're not going to go into a great deal of detail now about how, the beings of Faelon came to know magic from the Gaul as something in the distant past. And we're going to tell that story, but we want to tell it a certain way later on. But part of the overall magic question also had, is it becoming more common, becoming less common, kind of the same? And it's pretty much the way it's going to be. It's not like there's more magic flowing into the world or magic is draining out of the world. It's just the way it is. And so that will be kind of stable as a background element for some time. There's nothing, draining mana, out of Faelon. It just is what it is. It's a power of the Gaul that has been divested upon mortals. You're born with it. You're born with the ability to do it. Sometimes you can be trained to really embrace magical power and, explore all the different avenues and all the different abilities. And sometimes you have it in a very limited sense. You can, light a firecracker spontaneously. And that is a talent called wild magic that we are just now exploring that will allow characters to be built in Brightsword that are along one path. It's not the scroll path, and pick up a limited amount of magical capability. And they'll just pick up the wild magic talent as part of their adventure creation. That will give them access to a small number of spells and a limited caster rating and some other limited powers, but not the full breadth of all the spell talents and all however many spells are in a single spell form. I don't remember the number anymore. Not 81, but something close to that. Something in the 70s. I have to think about how many it is, but a lot of spells, that a single a spell type will allow you to cast. It's the same mechanically between spirit and energy magic. You're in the Brightsword game, when you're creating a character, creating an adventurer, you are either attuned, and that gives you a caster rating and an ability to cast magic and power and energy magic, or you are chosen, and you're doing the same thing in spirit magic. The background story there is that chosen is, I'm chosen by some divine power to be able to be a vessel for this magic and express it in the world. And attuned, I'm attuned to primordial elemental energies, and I can tap into one of the 9 elements and be able to do things with it. Effectively, they're the same. I have the same starting caster rating, I have the same starting power, and I either have one form of energy magic or one form of spirit magic. Like I said, we will tell more and more of that story. The Gaul split it in 2 between spirit and energy. They, of course, can manipulate powers of both kinds. But the idea of a mortal doing it is anathema to most cultures. And so the ability to put the 2 together can only be granted by something that doesn't care about the rules, which is generally perceived as evil. And so we use the term sorcery for those magics which are combinations of both energy and spirit. An example is the Macruel, but they come over from Carolon, and those rules do not apply to the denizens of Carolon. So you'll see more and more of that. The upcoming Cariad leader has a type of sorcery, which is what denizen of Faelon would call it, because to them it's just bad in general. Were there other magic questions, Matt?
There weren't.
Okay. Right. So question 3 was about the use of free bands. How common is it? How accepted is it in society? Is this something that just is run of the mill and everybody does it, and they're viewed as just a normal part of everyday life, or are they treated as lepers? What's the status of a free band in society? That really changes from place to place. It's generally accepted because it's been so useful to the people who act as patrons for free bands to be able to have this, plausible deniability, to get out of jail free card in terms of whatever these people caused to happen. Oh, that's not the army of Falcar. We didn't do that. That's some rogue element. And so it's kind of a nudge, wink, wink thing between these leaders that a free band gets out of hand a little bit, and it's not going to cause us to go to war, although it does sometimes. But generally speaking, it's different in different cultures. In some places, it's way more common. They're just free blades are walking down the streets, and any tavern in town is going to have some notice up. Free bands looking for work, or patrons looking for free bands to missions. Thormanol is a case in point, extremely common in the League of Thormanol. Not really a free band, for example, in the Urdagar tribes. It's more like a raiding party or a hunting party. The relationship between a free band and a patron often determines that. Your chieftain telling you, hey, you warriors that work for me, go do this thing, is different than some baron scraping up a bunch of hired swords out of the taverns of Valtanis. It's 2 different takes. The effect is the same. And so, especially like in the game, once you're a wolf carl out there with your crew, you're a free band, you're kind of doing the same things and functioning the same way as, say a Falcaran free band or a Chakram free band. From a macro view, maybe a little bit different, but once it's down on the ground, it's pretty much the same. And you can picture it as it's very, very similar to the cultures and ways of doing business during the golden age of piracy. You had people who were operating on their own, stealing from other people, or conducting, activities that weren't necessarily favorable to other people. Then you had countries giving letters that told people that was okay to do that stuff to them, and these other countries. And then you had some of these same people for both. So who's a soldier and who's a free blade? Who is doing this as a legitimate thing and who's kind of acting in the criminal enterprise world, it's a gray area. And we want that to be a gray area. We want you to play in that gray area and operate your free band, and kind of infuse yourself in the background. A Trazerite free band is very, very military in terms of the way it's organized and who is generally in it, and what kind of missions that they are called on to perform, typically in their area. And then the bandits, totally different. Entirely criminal enterprise. They're not out there acting on behalf of the Senate or the Trazerite army or some local noble. They're not generally in counterinsurgency operations, putting down some rebellion or assassinating some leader. They're out there to profit, to make money. So it really has to do with what part of the world you're in. So really it comes down to, they have a little bit different nature at the macro level depending on the society that they are in, but once they are on the ground, they all recognize each other. I am working for somebody else, and I'm just trying to get this job done, and I get paid at the end, and maybe some of the loot, maybe some of the booty. Okay? They can become part of standing forces, and that's the story of free captains. Free companies are basically giant military free bands. And often, during a conflict, free bands will be pulled together by a captain, and a captain is a, D16 MAR, D16 discipline, senior military leader, senior commander, senior mercenary commander, who pulls together a company the size of, 3+ fat free bands, to go do missions to complement, expand a standing army in a time of conflict. And so the story of free captains also won't be necessarily the story of a Trazerite legion. It'll be this free company that looks like a piece taken from a legion and is out doing some detached mission. We'll leave the strategic forces game for, some online thing we do, later on, some, computer-based or console-based game. So they are sometimes part of standing forces of armies. When war comes to Faelon, that becomes a much more common thing, and that is part of the story we're going to tell when we make the game Free Captains. Were there other questions about the free bands, Matt?
Yeah, one of the questions was, are free bands called different things by different factions and different cultures?
Yes, in some cases, and we have not told that story yet, right? I mean, we haven't really dived into the different languages and different cultures, and we need to do more of that as we go along. Now, when World Anvil is released, you will begin to see the different languages, their vocabularies, their the way they count numbers, the days of the week, what they call the gods, what they call each other. I call a person from Germany a German, but they don't call themselves that, because German is an English word. So what is a failure, to a person who is not a failure? So those kind of cultural worlds, the same thing will happen. We'll be talking about, what is the Simker word for free band and free blade? What is the Chalish word for that? So we will get to that. That's not something we're going to answer tonight. We're going to let that play out as the language becomes more and more available. Because we want you to, we want you to at least have the option to name your characters and tell your stories and frame your campaigns using the language of the part of the world that you want to play in. So we're going to give you as much of that as possible, and the parts that aren't filled in, you're going to help us fill in. Okay. What else, Matt?
That's it for that one, sir.
Okay, the last one I have of the big questions that we had to pull was about demon hunters. What are the different factions' relationships with the denizens of Carolon and those places that don't really like them very much? What are their demon hunters called and how do they operate? And so I'm just going to go down through the big ones that we've already talked about, or we've at least hinted at. So the rest will probably be more of a story we tell in the future. The first is Falkar. The Kingdom of Falkar maintains a core of trained personnel to deal with demon infestations called the Shadow Hunters. They have a fancier name. We'll let you find that when you start to explore our background on World Anvil. The teams that they make that close and destroy witch gates and catch and kill demons and send them back to Faelon are led by Shadow Hunters. So that's a model you can already have in the Freeblades game. The Shadow Hunters have a demon companion to help them deal with the situation. There's a story behind that we're going to tell, called the Genkar. That's already a model. You can have a thing you can play in Freeblades. And that would make it clear that not all demons are bad, right? They're just denizens of somewhere else. A great many of them don't like where they live because Faelon is a very, from our framework at least, is a very chaotic, unstable place. And to them, Faelon is this beautiful, even some of the nastier parts, what we would think maybe would be a nastier part, a desert or an arid plain somewhere or a seriously rocky volcanic area, is still better than a large part of Faelon. So in terms of a place to live. So a lot of them want to come over here and conquer because it's more fun to be here than in Faelon. Also because some of their powers and abilities make them more powerful than the people that they encounter when they cross over. And so it's easier for them to dominate a certain space if they're just left to their own devices. And that's led these cultures to develop these demon hunter teams. Falkar led by a shadow hunter, a demon ally as a companion and advisor for the shadow hunter, and then 2 foresters, a male and female, each with bonded witch cats, is an Aegis, a core demon hunting group, which, unlike maybe some of the other ones, we haven't completely told their stories yet. You can actually play that out in Freeblades right now with that organization. The witch cats are Dramiel. They're a kind of creature that is a hybrid demon normal animal. So they're a panther or a mountain lion or something, big cat and something, another story to tell, which gives them the ability to, gives them the witch sight talent. So they have the ability to see in between. So they can detect a demon hiding in between and detect witch gates that are open. So because they're bonded to their foresters, or they train with their foresters, the foresters also can make use of that talent. And so they can hunt and find these places and rid Falkar of this infestation. So Falkar is definitely one of those societies not demon friendly for the most part. Obviously, they're fine with visitors. I guess we'll have to decide, Matt, whether we issue demon visas in Falkar. So people aren't coming there to conquer are welcome, but a lot of the demon cultures are interested in conquering pieces of Falkar. So that's Falkar, one of the stories we told in a lot of detail. Some of that was in the old Falkar faction book. Now we stopped that whole line because all that information is going to be in our World of Faelon section of World Anvil, which we get closer to every day, being able to release that. In Herodel, they're called the Swords of Valia. They are a Herodel's has a very religious nature to it, much closer to their religion and their gods than other cultures in some cases. And Valia is one of the goddesses, and the Swords of Valia are like a Fist of Vidnar is a battle priest. The Swords of Valia, their particular job is to go and hunt demons and close witch gates in a similar way to the Falkarans, or not the same way. They don't have witch cats. The swords are not longbow armed, hunter rangers. They are something else, which we will reveal at a later time. In a similar way, in Thormanel, they're called the White Shields. So a different take on the same thing. All 3 civilized Faelor countries are not fans of demons. The Thormanolans are in a little bit different situation because Thormanol is not as homogeneously Faelor as the other 2. There's a large Simkur and a large Chalor population in Thormanol, so they have to be sensitive to those cultures, relationships with demons and with things coming or living in between. And so the White Shields aren't just kill on sight. They have a different relationship. Could you please go back to the space that we've provided for you rather than just slay? And we'll tell that story some more as we go on. In Corona, they're called Mudors. And Mudors are agents of the Caliph and Khalifa that are there to differentiate between those things that are passing from Caroline in between that don't belong here, and those things that are using between as a way to connect with our ancestors and those who have gone before, which is very, very important to Corona culture. This part is okay, this part is not okay, and these and Mudors are a society that kind of makes that differentiation. In Trillius, they're called Mirandel. The Mirandel are this is once again a story we're going to tell later, but they are a society that is a lot like has a lot of similarities to the way Falcarns do business. Not exactly the same, but Trillius just can't allow anybody into the Deepwood, and there are reasons for that. And so demons are not welcome here at all. And so it very much is a destroy the witch gate, kill the demon on sight operation. And like I said, we'll go into more detail later. The Khazark, we've just released our first Khazark demon hunter, the Lightbringer, a very specialized, well, I didn't say very special, he's very capable across the board model in the game. But the Lightbringers are a specialized demon hunting force as a whole. What they can't have, they're not resourced because of the situation with the Free City and the lack of population resources and the fact that all these spaces are wide open and untended in some cases. There is a plan in the heart of every Khazark to reclaim the lost cities. And if those are infested by demons, because they're great places to put witch gates, they're isolated, well defended, or can be well defended. There's often some kind of magical residue to play with from previous enchantments or things the Khazark that used to live there might have made or done. And so they're primo places for witch gates to open and for demons to occupy. And it's going to be harder to reclaim one of the lost cities or one of these habitations if they're infested with demons. And so the Lightbringers aren't there to stop demons everywhere. They will, but they're focused on these cities that they want to retake from nature. And that is the background we have right now that we want to release on the Demon Hunter Societies. Grulard don't hunt demons, they ally with them and party with them. Those bastards, you have to watch them very carefully. Kandor is very open-minded about things from somewhere else that aren't supposed to be here, because that's their bread and butter. Although that's not the focus of their magical enterprise at the government level. It's obviously necromancy, but really not something that concerns them to any great degree. And there's a lot to be gained and learned from relationships with demons who know some of these arts that the Kandorans are interested in. We're going to hold off on explaining what the relationship between demons and Simidians is, because that's a story we want to tell later, and also a story we want to tell later with the Confederacy of Varkral, because Varkralans rejected religion and magic to settle their land. And so how is it you get rid of demons if you don't possess the magical ability to do so? So that's a very interesting story that we want to save for a little bit later. But that's what I have on the Demon Hunters in society there, Matt. Do we have questions on that?
There weren't any questions, but there has been one that's come up since then, and that is, what are the Erdegar relationships to demon hunting and demons?
Yeah, so that's a really good one. Okay, and it differs based on the different tribes, and like everything about Erdegar differs on the basis of the different tribes. The tribes of valor are less interested in. Obviously, no one really of the Urtigar tribes is interested in having their lands conquered by anyone, demons especially, or including demons. But the more dark the tribe, the more towards the, I don't want to say evil, I don't think that's the right way to look at it, but the more morally ambiguous tribes, using demon relationships in order to get a leg up on our neighbor tribes that maybe don't have any, that do have scruples about that, is definitely something the tribes of Ruin would pull. So less favorable to the tribes of Valor because it's not honorable. You shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. They always turn on you in the end, or there's always some kind of, I trusted you, but now it's the scorpion and the frog. I thought you were going to take care of me, and right at the moment of truth, you stabbed me in the back. If that's business as usual, if you're Vulture tribe or a Jackal tribe, that's just Tuesday to them. So, it's going to be different based on which of the tribes. So the tribes of Valor will do this through their mystics, their council of mystics. I think we talked about the circle of mystics, I think, on the old website. Man, I don't remember. I think it was buried in there, but that's definitely a story that was going to be in the World Anvil database. How the Urtigar casters are organized more broadly across the tribes than the political leadership and the military leadership very much struggle. But you can get a communication between two casters in the circle of mystics across the tribal lines very much more easily than you can some other way. And so, but the specifics of that, exactly how we have a deal between demons and one of the Ruin tribes, or how the tribes of Valor go after demons, is one of those stories that's yet to come. And specifics, anyway. What else? That's the 4 subjects. We don't have any questions on those.
Nope, we're good with questions there. If you're ready to show a screen for us, I think we're good to go.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, and you're going to help me make sure it's getting out the way it's supposed to and looking the way it's supposed to.
I will make sure that
I am going
good.
to.
I've had a little trouble with your
camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open photos on my desktop here, and then hit share screen. And then go live with it.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
You can see. Can you see that okay, Matt?
Yeah, not yet, but it's working. Yep, we're good.
You can see it okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you should be able to see a Bone Thrall Impaler.
Bone Thrall Impaler it is.
Okay. So what we're going to do now, because we did it the other night, we want to make sure everybody gets a chance to see this, is we're going to show you some concept art for upcoming and future models. The next model to be released will be the Demon Vineling, and that goes live in the store next Tuesday, and our retail partners can already order it as part of their orders.
Hold on, sir. We just lost it.
The following one. You lost it?
Yep.
Okay.
See what's
good or not good?
Nope, it's still not up. Hold on a second. There we go. We're back up.
Okay. Back up. All right. See if I can run it a different way that might keep that from happening. Okay, so getting a lot of flickering here. Okay, that should be good. So the next month, finally next week, June is the Richter car, the Michelle Richter car. That's their creature that it's their cavalry. It comes in 3 stages of life. At first it's aquatic, then it's land, then it will get wings and fly. That will come down the road. But the middle version, the cavalry version, is coming out. After that, because of the big shakeup in what conventions are going to be held and not held, and decisions still to be made, exactly what model is going to come out when is still not something we can announce. We can tell you we're going to do at least one a month, but we can't tell you exactly what they are at this moment. So all of these models are, rest of 2020, 2021 models. What order they come out in is something that we'll have to wait to announce. And one of the big things we got to decide is what happens with respect to Gen Con once that decision is finally made. Of course, we do a big release there. We already know we're not doing a release at a multi-model release at ReaperCon because ReaperCon's been canceled. So you just got to bear with us a little bit as we deal with the current world situation. But for sure, one a month at least, and these are the ones, and exactly what order we'll be able to tell later. Lone Thrall Impaler is a Kandoran undead heavy cavalryman, equipped with a shield and armed with the same weapon as the Grular Impaler. Kandor, Varkral, Grular, and Semidia are all the same race. They're all the same core culture. And so you'll see a lot of similarities in some of the weapons that they use and some of their styles. And this is an undead model, undead hero, in the same vein as the Cryx Reaper is an undead hero. Okay, can you see the Rough Rider, Matt?
I sure can. Oh, yep. There it is.
Okay. Bandit Rough Rider, a cavalry model available to the Bandit factions, equipped with a... Matt, you still there? Because your video's gone, so make sure you're on.
I'm good.
Okay. The Bandit Rough Rider is a bandit hero, cavalry, equipped with a saber and bolus, so we can entangle somebody over range. It will also be the first model that comes into the game with a talent that allows a cavalry model to interact with a token or perform a special action while mounted without going on hold as an action. And so that can be very useful to you bandit players that want to scarf up loot markers. Here's your guy, in addition to other cool things that he does. We're not doing the Earth Dragon right away, but as we've talked about in the past, there are nine dragons. The rulers of Carolon, the people of Faelon call them dragons. They have a different name for themselves in Carolon than that. Some of them fly, some of them don't. Some of them travel through. Some of them travel in different ways than flying and walking. We have done art for 3 of them, one of which we've made, which is the Dragon of Fire. And so we'll eventually do all 9. How quickly we do them is to be seen. This is the Earth Dragon. Does not have wings, and his breath weapon is acid. So very bad. Do not get in front of an Earth Dragon. Or behind him with that tail. What's going on there? This is the Michelle Ricticard. This is our June release. And so a Michelle hero on a strange, mobile, non-horse creature. It's actually, the thing is called a Ricticard. That's what they're called. And so that's the next Michelle modeled.
Yeah,
how are we doing now?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes when I click on to advance, it'll skip ahead, so I'll make sure. All right, let me see here. So bear with me. We're having a little bit of some kind of difficulty in this monitor with the mouse, just to be able to advance it. All right. Something's just bear with me, Matt. I'm having a little bit of trouble advancing the screen.
You're fine, sir.
Okay. All right. Let me see if there's another way to do this. Okay, can you see the Void Agent?
I can.
Okay. This is a Eclipse Hero, She is the first model to enter the game with the wild magic talent. So in addition to being a rogue, spy, operative type character, she's also going to have the ability to cast 3 power 1 void magic spells with a very limited caster rating, and not able to get all of the to access all of the spell talents, but definitely makes her a very powerful character in the game.
We just lost her, sir. Ooh.
Void Dragon, can you see that?
Oh, I can. It's very pretty.
Yeah. So the other dragon for which we have art is the Void Dragon. Void is one of the 9 elements. Void magic is one of the energies, or energy magics that you have available to you. Does not fly. It moves through the ether, the void, basically the same way the Zarfanax does. It has the phase shift talent and some other powers that are going to make it super creepy when we finally do it. And of course, I think everybody wants to paint this model. So,
yes.
Looking forward to that guy. Dire Rider, Matt.
Beautiful, yes. Oh, for a second.
Erdogar Wolf Tribe. What's that?
It just winked out.
Okay. Let me see if I can't change that. How about now?
No, she's still gone, sir.
Okay, so you don't have a stream at all.
I don't. Oh, there it is.
Okay. I do not know what's causing that effect, so we're going to have to explore that. We don't want to make people wait around for that in the future. So
right.
We'll have to look at what's causing that when it's just you and me offline, kind of taking a look at. Dire Rider, Erdogar Wolf Tribe leader, mounted on a dire wolf, because you need that in your life.
Everybody needs that.
Super offensive, capable, D12 discipline, D12 Mar leader. Not super effective at shenanigans type moves like sidestep or picking up loot markers or doing whatever else. But you really don't want to get charged by one. So a very offensive oriented model to lead your forces instead of the Wolf Carl. Or you can take a Wolf Carl and then take a Sky's a Hero, using the alternate leader role. Okay, Freebooter. See him?
Oh yeah.
All right, this is a Bandit model, Bandit Hero, with a nautical theme, obviously. We're making him, or we put him in the schedule for a couple reasons. We do plan to have it might be a thing that one of the branches of the Black Rose's Dark Syndicate is at sea. Okay? And so when that time comes, this guy will be a core part of that force. But to get him out there and have him available to be taken, even amongst the land-lubbing version of the Black Rose, could be a lot of fun. And this year's ReaperCon, the theme was supposed to be pirates. And so we wanted to get a little ahead of ourselves and release them early to kind of play along with that theme. We're still going to do it. We actually have the sculpture back, and he's moving along the pipeline just fine. And the hat is a separate bit. There's a clean one, and then kind of a roughed up hat. And of course, you can just leave it off his head and have the bald freebooter once you get the model. And you don't want to get stabbed by a harpoon. It's bad. Even if you're not a whale, it's bad. Okay. Right? I mean, I'm trying to... I don't know what's causing this effect in my screen map. It's making it a challenge to advance the photos.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, hey, nothing you're doing. Okay. Sword of Vidnar?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so in the Haradalen Freeband right now, the caster is the Fist of Vidnar. The Fists of Vidnar are Haradal's battle priests or classic cleric-type models, casters of divine magic that wear armor. And it is a sect of their religion. but not all priests. In fact, not even the majority of priests are Fists of Vidnar. They're just Varanic priests called cantors. And the cantors have roles throughout Herodon society, local churches up to cathedrals in the centers of cities. And those cantors are also sometimes called upon to act inside free bands. But even when they're not, when they're out, especially when they're out in their country churches, they're not wearing armor. They're not carrying, a war matic shaped like a fist. And so Herodel has developed a society of protectors for these cantors called the Swords of Vidnar. And so she is a Herodel hero, perfectly capable on her own, doesn't have to be taken with a cantor. Two-handed sword wielder, wearing chainmail, so armor value 5. And but where she really comes into her own is when she's paired with a cantor, because she has both the protector talent and an advanced version of it, which allows her to move from where she is to intercede when the cantor is threatened. And so they'll often be taken as a pair, not always, certainly, but also a very cool model, and very cool as a fighter, whether you take a cantor or not. And they don't have to be. They don't have to be women. Herodel's pretty progressive society in that area, so men and women serve all the roles. So it might be a male sort of Vidnar down the road. Cantor, Matt?
Yep.
Okay, so let me see if I can't make this happen a little bit simpler next time. Okay. All right, so can you still see him?
Yep.
Okay, so this is that priest we're talking about, a Herodellan priest, uses Varanic rites, the same magic type as the Fist of Vidnar and the Shadow Hunter.
He just went
away. But not the exact same. He just went away?
Yeah.
See if I'm working on it, buddy.
Oh, you're fine, sir.
How about now?
Yep, got him.
Okay. I think I know what's happening, but we can work on that later.
Okay.
All right, so Varanic Rites Priest, not the exact same spell list as either the Shadow Hunter or the Fist of Vidnar, but the same base spell list. So these casters tend to be initiate level. There's 9 levels. The first 3 are novice and apprentice and initiate. So the D10 casters are initiates. And so they draw from those 3 spell lists. And the novice spells are power 1, apprentice spells are power 2, and initiate spells are power 3. You can see all of those up through level 3 of all the different kinds of magic in the beta of Brightsword. And of course, they'll be available on World Anvil as well, because that's where Brightsword is going to reside once that's up. So that set of spell lists, 3 spell lists, 9 spells each, 27 spells. The Cantor and Shadow Hunter and Fist of Vidnar will have a different set of 9, but some of them will be the same. So it won't be exactly the same set, but some will overlap. And so the Cantor will have a different set of 9 than the other 2, but draw from the same source. The model also comes with 2 heads, but unlike in the past, it doesn't just allow you to make 2 different versions of the same model. It allows you to have the model as either gender, either sex, male or female. And so the body of the model is the same, and you get a head and 2 different heads that allow you to have this model represent either of the 2 sexes. So something I don't think has been done, Matt. I think we might be first.
I think so.
I don't know that for sure. It's certainly not common, and something we've wanted to do for a while. It's kind of a lot of fun. If I wanted to play a male Sword of Vidnar or a female Fist of Vidnar, I kind of have to wait, or I have to do a conversion. If you want to be a male or female Cantor, you'll be able to do that right out of the clamshell. And so, more opportunities we have to do that, we're going to take them. And we do, I think, intend to try to have these released at the same time as the sword, but I'm not sure we can guarantee that. Okay, should be able to see the twins.
Yep.
Keldan and Urvlor. Models that were sponsored by two of our favorite people, Kevin and Irvin Armitage, who live in Sudbury, Canada. And they have helped us create two Thormonalan heroes that will start out as allies. So a lot of factions will be able to take them, one or both. And they're fairly competent heroes from a combat standpoint, but they're also great in campaigns because they bring some merchant type talents to your free band that allow you some options you can't get any other way. And you can take one or both. You don't have to take them both. I don't think we're going to keep track of which one sells more than the other, but we might, right?
Not a bad
idea. And then poke one of those guys with it. Oh, no, we sold way more Keldans. That might be fun to do. Even if we don't do it for real, we can just tell them. No, we sold twice as many Airfloors, so I don't know what the hell is going on. But also, these will be the core heroes in our first Thormonalan free band, the Thormonalan Merchants. And so the starter free band of that faction will be a leader, a caster, these two folks, and two followers at 150 gold. And that's something that's not all that far away. So we're very excited both about releasing them as individuals who can be taken allied in different factions and their role upcoming as part of a Thormonalan faction. First time Thormonal has shown up in the Free Blades game as a faction. Okay. Corman Shadow, Matt?
Yep.
Okay. So, speaking of sponsorships, our good friends in the group that's centered basically in Michigan, United States, have jointly sponsored an entire faction, and they're going to help us bring Corona to you next year. Exactly when we're going to be able to release, once again, isn't nailed down. But we're absolutely on track in terms of and getting all the 6 models that go into the starter box done, and this is one of them. Corman Shadow is a rogue operative spy type hero, a mask path for those of you who follow such things in Faelon, and brings that same kind of capability that Kazark Field Agents bring, Secret Sisters in the Eclipse bring, and those type models. So not the kind of model that does really well just standing in a combat and taking it like a Packmaster or a Boar Warrior, but has a lot of capability to do a lot of great things for her free band in all the different situations they find themselves in. One of the things that characterizes Corona society is it's the most balanced with respect to the role of males and females in their culture, and it's co-led by a caliph and a khalifa, and free bands are co-led by moon's priests and moon's priestesses who operate in pairs. And so while we're limited in a way that the starter box will only have one of the 2 casters in it, the other one will follow very shortly after the starter box is released. So the starter box will be a moon's priest, who is also the leader. And when you have both of them, and yes, the Coronans will be the first faction that allows you to have 2 casters in the faction, you pick one as the leader, and you assign a slightly higher gold value to it. And so you can decide whether it's the Moon's Priest or Moon's Priestess, up to you which one's the leader. And the other one is one of the heroes, then a Corman Shadow and a Blade Sister and a Black Spear, and then a red archer and a red spear as the 2 followers. And so we're extremely excited. The Michigan crew raised all the money to sponsor this faction and put it in the production schedule way earlier than we had planned. And so we're going to be very pleased to bring Corona to you on a much, much accelerated schedule over what we might have done otherwise. And so those are total heroes. All those folks are total heroes.
Very excited.
And of course, she's going to be an extremely cool model. And of course, Corona will have a very strong relationship with the Eclipse Sisterhood. The Eclipse sends sisters to Corona to train and also to lay low if their cover has been blown, if they're able to get out of the Empire. And of course, Corona is super interested in anything it can do on behalf of the Eclipse Sisterhood because it screws with Trazerite Society, which is their favorite thing to do. Blade Sister. Can you see it, man?
I sure can.
Yeah, in the starter box, the starter box of the Corona faction will be a Moon's Priest, and the Moon's Priestess will follow sometime after the starter box for free bands 200 gold and over, where you need to have both casters. Moon's Priest, Corman Shadow, Blade Sister, Black Spear is basically the Moon's Priest's protector. The Moon's Priest isn't a great fighter, isn't a great hand-to-hand fighter, so that D12 Mar role is filled by the Black Spear and then two followers, the Red Spear and the Red Archer. And so shield, saber, the kind of skills you'd expect from a swordswoman, and a very capable one. And armor 5 as well. It's a chainmail shirt she's wearing under there. So we see Ronan. Can you see her?
I can.
Okay. The Michelle C. Ronan, another Michelle Hero, and also a model that might end up in some theoretical pirate faction, if that's something we ever do, like the Freebooter. But absolutely a faction hero of the Michelle Corsairs, the Michelle faction. They have found themselves, for various reasons, a little bit behind in the hero count, and we're always trying to bring balance amongst the factions, but also this allows us to speed up the process where we get to that pirate faction down the road at some point, in the not too distant future. A capable, classically armored, that special armor 5 that Michelle wears allows them to move 7, quick, a natural talent quick, and very capable with the Tamari, a D10 sword. Ooh, yeah. Okay, can we see this guy?
I can.
Grular Painbringer. The Painbringer is a Grular hero on foot, armed with an Angara, that parry dagger that, like the Krang carries, that allows him to raise his melee defense. His primary weapon is a barbed whip, and he comes with the talent Lash Attack. He can conduct 2 attacks when he's stationary, and some other conditions are in effect. He's also a sergeant for Bludgeoneer and Krang, and so he allows a Grular free band that's foot-based to have Bludgeoneer and Krang away from the Korkan and not be at risk of just leaving the battlefield when somebody uses harsh language. Something we've wanted to do for a very long time. A very old piece of concept art. We've had it around forever, and we're just we decided to take it out of the vault and say, hey, it's time to do this guy. So he's in the pipeline. Okay, and I think that's it. Yeah, Matt, that's it for the concept art.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. So that's I think that's my part. What else do we have?
Well, that's it, sir. I think we are done.
Okay. Thank you for listening to us. I'm going to turn things over to Matt to kind of close this out, but we really appreciate your patience with trying to get the recording to you so that you could, if you weren't able to join us the first time, and we look very, very forward to doing more of these in the future.
Yeah, thanks, John. Fantastic discussion tonight. A lot of really good information, and I love that the fans and the players have been suggesting these things, and we can answer a lot of these questions. Thank you guys for bearing with us. We're still experiencing a few technical difficulties. This is really new technology for us, so we're kind of tripping our way through it. So you're going to see a lot of like John disappearing off the camera this evening, but the sound's all good, which I think is a huge improvement over the last time, and we did get the whole slideshow in, so that's fantastic. So guys, thank you very much. Hope you enjoy it, and you'll see a poll soon for our second bit. So you all have a good evening.